Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. And first off, a huge thank you and a really warm welcome to our four newest subscribers over on the Encore Mind YouTube channel.
Yeah, fantastic to have you all join us.
Yeah,
We love seeing the community grow.
we really do. Okay, so today we're getting into some pretty deep stuff, really fundamental questions about reality itself and how we actually perceive it.
hmm It's the kind of topic that can really make you rethink things.
Definitely. And we're basing this discussion on some excerpts from a text that dives into metaphysics. It touches on ideas from, well, Kant all the way back to the ancient Greeks.
That's right. A pretty broad sweep, historically speaking.
Our aim, as always, is to pull out those key insights as sort of aha moments
Mhm.
and make these big, sometimes complex ideas feel, well, accessible.
Exactly. The goal isn't to overwhelm you, but to give you a clear, engaging path into these concepts. If you're curious and want to get your head around big ideas efficiently, this is for you.
Perfect. So let's start with Immanuel Kant, an 18th century philosopher, but his ideas were, well, totally revolutionary for their time, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. What's really key with Kant is his idea about how we experience the world. He argued that things like space and time and even causality,
Yeah,
they aren't just out there objectively.
right. Not like finding a rock or something.
Yeah, exactly. He suggested they're more like structures that our minds impose on whatever sensations we receive.
Okay, take time, for example. We always experience things happening one after another in sequence. It feels very real, very constant.
It does. But Kant would say that time isn't this external river flowing. It's more like the operating system our mind uses to organize experiences. It makes them sequential for us.
That makes sense when you think about, say, the Big Bang. We try to imagine what came before it.
And our minds just automatically insert a before. Even if science says time itself began there, it shows how built in that temporal framework is for us.
Yeah, or like trying to imagine the edge of space. You immediately think, well, what's beyond the edge?
Right. Our mind just assumes more space. It's how we're wired to perceive it. Kant argued the same applies to causality, the idea that every event must have a cause.
Which seems like common sense, really. Something happens, you look for why.
We do. But Kant's point was, is that link in the events themselves? Or is it a connection our mind makes to understand the sequence? He argued for the latter. It's a mental framework.
And that leads us to his big distinction, right? Phenomena and noumena.
Precisely. Phenomena is the world as we experience it, filtered through our senses and these mental structures like space, time, causality.
The world for us, basically.
Yeah, and noumena is, well, it's the things in themselves. Reality as it might exist, completely independent of our minds, independent of how we perceive it.
Something we can maybe think about but never directly access.
That's the idea. Because the moment we experience anything, our mind has already shaped it. We can never know the raw, unfiltered thing in itself.
That's fascinating when you apply it to, say, understanding ourselves, how we appear to others, our actions, that's phenomenal.
Right, what others perceive.
But our inner self, our private thoughts, feelings, that's closer to the noumena, something others can't directly grasp.
It's a useful analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
It raises that question, are we just the sum of how others see us, or is there an inaccessible inner core?
And all this culminates in what's called his Copernican revolution in philosophy.
Yes. Just like Copernicus flipped the model of the solar system, Kant flipped the model of knowledge. Before him, the idea was mostly that our minds conform to the world. We passively receive data.
Like a camera taking a picture of reality.
Kind of. But Kant said, no, it's the other way around. The world as we know it conforms to the structures of our mind. Our mind is actively constructing our experienced reality.
So our knowledge isn't a perfect mirror of what's out there.
Not according to Kant. It's always mediated, always shaped by our senses and our innate mental frameworks. Which means we can't really know anything with absolute certainty as it is in itself. Not color, not space, not time, not even cause and effect.
Wow. That's a profound challenge. And this whole area, this questioning of appearance versus reality, what might be beyond our senses, that's really the heartland of metaphysics, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Metaphysics is basically the branch of philosophy that tries to understand the fundamental nature of reality, of existence itself. It asks questions that go beyond what we can directly observe or measure empirically.
Like questions about goodness or truth or beauty, or even just, is there more to reality than just the physical stuff we interact with daily?
Exactly. It's about seeking a deeper understanding, a bigger picture. Of course, some people reject that entirely. They might say, look, what you see is what you get. Everyday experience is all there is.
That's a valid perspective, too.
It is, but for many people, there's this intuition, this feeling that there might be some underlying reality, some deeper meaning or order. And that very search for deeper meaning, whether you end up believing in God or some cosmic principle or nothing specific,
Hmm.
that search is a metaphysical act.
So this isn't just Kant. This questioning goes way back.
Oh, centuries, millennia even. You can trace it through Descartes and his radical doubt in the 17th century, but it really goes back to the ancient Greeks.
Plato and Aristotle, obviously. The big names.
Foundational figures, yes. But even before them, you had thinkers trying to move beyond myths, trying to find rational explanations for the world, looking for hidden rules or fundamental substances.
Like the atomists, I find their ideas incredible for the time.
Right. The idea that everything is made of tiny, indivisible particles. And even they suggested that things like color aren't in the atoms themselves, but depend on how the observer interacts with them. That's a very Kantian-sounding idea thousands of years earlier.
It really is. And then you have someone like Heraclitus.
Ah, the flux philosopher. You can't step into the same river twice.
Exactly, highlighting constant change, which makes you ask, well, what is permanent? What gives things continuity if everything is always changing?
These were the deep questions they were wrestling with. They were trying to find logic and order beneath the surface appearances of the world. It was a shift towards reasoned inquiry.
Which brings us very neatly to Plato and probably his most famous idea, the allegory of the cave. It's such a powerful image.
It really is. Do you want to quickly outline it?
Sure. So you have prisoners chained in a cave facing a wall their whole lives. Behind them, there's a fire, and people walk past carrying objects, casting shadows on the wall.
And those shadows are the only reality the prisoners know. They think the shadows are the real things.
Right. Then one prisoner gets free, leaves the cave, and sees the actual world, the sun, the real objects. It's overwhelming at first, but then illuminating.
Literally illuminating. He sees true reality.
But when he goes back to tell the others,
You don't believe him. They might even think he's crazy or dangerous because he's challenging their entire worldview.
so for Plato, this allegory was about what exactly?
It was his way of saying that our ordinary sensory experience, what we see, hear, touch, is like those shadows. It's a limited, maybe even distorted reflection of a higher, truer reality.
A reality not accessible through the senses.
Not primarily. For Plato, this higher reality consists of what he called forms or ideas. Think of the perfect concept of justice or beauty, or even, like the example in our text, a perfect mathematical circle.
Ah, right. We never see a perfect circle in the world. Things are always slightly off. But we can grasp the idea of a perfect circle in our minds.
Exactly. Those perfect forms, Plato believed, are the true reality. And gaining real knowledge isn't about observing the imperfect shadows. It's about using our reason, our intellect, to grasp these forms. It's a journey from the darkness of the cave into the light of understanding.
Moving beyond appearances to the underlying essence through thought.
Precisely. A very different emphasis compared to, say, the atomists who were focused on physical composition.
But then came Aristotle, Plato's student, who had a rather different take.
He did. While he respected Plato immensely, Aristotle disagreed fundamentally about this separate realm of forms. For Aristotle, reality is this world, the one we experience with our senses.
So no need to look for perfect forms elsewhere. Focus on what's here.
That was his approach. He was much more empirical. To understand things in this world, he came up with his famous 4 causes.
Okay, can you remind us what those are?
Sure. There's the material cause, what's it made of, like the bronze of a statue. The formal cause, what is its form or structure, the shape of the statue. The efficient cause, what brought it into being, the sculptor. And the final cause, what is its purpose or end. It's telos, like maybe it's meant to honor someone.
Got it. So understanding involves looking at all those aspects of the actual object.
Yes. Instead of Plato's emphasis on ascending to abstract forms through reason alone, Aristotle stressed starting with observation of actual things and then developing general principles or concepts from that experience.
So two really distinct paths. Plato looking up towards abstract reason, Aristotle looking down or around at empirical reality.
That's a good way to put it. And these two fundamental ways of thinking about appearance versus reality, about the role of reason versus experience, have echoed down through philosophy ever since.
It's amazing how relevant these ancient arguments still feel. You see echoes even in modern science, right?
Absolutely. When scientists grapple with the origin of the universe, the nature of time at a quantum level, what fundamental particles really are, or even theorize about things like the multiverse.
They're bumping up against metaphysical questions, questions beyond just direct observation.
Exactly. They are pushing the boundaries of the empirical and asking fundamental questions about the nature of reality itself. What is time? What is matter? Is there reality beyond what we can currently detect? That's metaphysics territory.
So it really boils down to that core impulse to look beyond the surface, to question if what we see is all there is, and to probe the true nature of things and how we understand them.
Precisely. And as the source text points out, even just looking up at the night sky and wondering about the vastness of the universe, that simple act of wonder engages our capacity for metaphysical thought.
That's a great point. Okay, wow. We've definitely journeyed through some deep waters today. Just to recap quickly for everyone listening.
Yeah, let's pull it together.
We started with Kant and his really important idea that our minds aren't passive mirrors, but actively shape reality through structures like space and time, the whole phenomena versus noumena thing.
Then we broadened out to metaphysics itself, that philosophical quest for understanding what lies beyond immediate experience, the search for deeper meaning.
And we traced that quest back, looking at Plato's allegory of the cave and his focus on unchanging forms reached through reason.
Contrasted with Aristotle's focus on understanding the empirical world right here through observation and his four causes. Two major contrasting views on appearance and reality.
And importantly, these aren't just dusty old ideas.
Not at all. They still underpin so much of how we think about knowledge, reality, and even how science frames its biggest questions today.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. As you go about your day to day, just notice your own assumptions. How much of what you experience as real might be influenced or even constructed by the frameworks of your own mind?
It's a fascinating question to ponder.
It really is. And listen, if you enjoyed this exploration and want more deep dives into ideas that make you think, please do head over and subscribe to the Ancora Mind YouTube channel.
Yeah, we'd love to have you there as we explore more intriguing topics.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.